the story that you're telling yourself about what's happening in life is more important than what is actually happening. And why is that true? Because our stories that we create about what is going on, about what the reality is, can completely override the actual reality itself. Whether you have some sort of situation that was going on in a relationship, whether you have some sort of story about your body, whether you have some story about your self-worth, that story can be very, very, very different than the reality. The reality is what is actually happening, but the story is my interpretation of what is actually happening, and there can be a pretty big gap in between the two. Okay, so if we are going to grow, if we are going to develop, if we are going to become the person that we truly can be, right, our potential, we have to recognize what story am I telling myself about what's going on? And then the big question, because not all stories are bad, but the big question then becomes, does that story serve me? Does that story actually serve me and allow me to grow? And is that story in alignment with reality? One way that you can get to questioning that story is asking yourself the question, and hi everybody who's tuning in, please tell me where you're tuning in from. One way to get to that question is asking yourself, are you sure? Because there's a lot of conversation going on in this damn head of ours, right? But if you ask yourself the question, are you certain that that is the truth? And you really listen and you answer honestly, sometimes you will find that there is a gap, there is a difference between what is actually going on and the story you're telling yourself about it. This is so powerful because often our stories are generated from things that happened a long time ago. But if you recognize that, right? If you figure that part out, if you listen to this video today and you start looking at the areas of life where you're really struggling and then go, what story am I telling myself about this? What am I saying about myself? And does that really help me? Does that really serve me? If the answer is no, you can change the story. You can ask yourself, okay, what would be a story that would really serve me here? Let's say you failed at something, you tried and failed at something and it didn't work out. Instead of creating a story of, oh, I'm a failure, I'm the worst person on this planet, I don't deserve anything, that story doesn't serve you. But it could be, well, yeah, I tried and I failed and I'm going to try again until I make it work. The difference in the long run and even in the short run of how those two stories play out is going to be huge. It's big. Right? These stories have the capacity, and I work with people all the time on this personally, these stories have the capacity to really run your life. And like I said, it's not that all stories are bad. You might have a lot of stories that really serve you, right? That really help you. And then in other areas of your life, you might not have stories. You most certainly don't have stories that are allowing you to grow and to become who you really want to be. So, keeping that in mind, we have to be super, super diligent about the conversation going on in our head. What are we telling ourselves about what's happening? And if you don't like what you are telling yourself about what's happening, you have the power to change it. You have the power to morph it into something else. This is the power of story. So remember, your stories can either make you or they can break you, right? And this is incredibly important to understand and to be very, very, very conscious of, okay? Absolutely. Be very conscious of this. It makes the world of a difference. So start looking at all the different stories that you have about things, right? And then go, does this serve me? Does this not serve me?